channel or welcome back to my channel. My name is Andy, sometimes Mouse, and I talk about books and book-related things. And today I am giving you my top books of 2024. Now, as usual, as I do every year or have done for a few years, I don't know now, I'm gonna do like a little bracket battle royale where they battle it out and I get my top three. I will then rank the top three in order of all-time favorite, second, and third. That is the game plan. With the caveat, please know, one, I read a lot of books, and so remembering the plots of all of these books is gonna be tricky. Two, all of this is just opinion-based, this is all subjective, and this is all just how I feel about the matter. You might not like any of these books, and that is totally okay. So, with that being said, but before I might make some people upset about my favorite books for some reason, don't forget to like and subscribe and share if you want to watch more content from me, if you like the idea of seeing me ramble about books and having strong opinions, etc. I do this all the time. Come hang out. We're fun here, I guess. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about my top books. So hopefully editing me has put the actual bracket here, but we're gonna get into them one at a time, more or less, and we're gonna have our round one, wherein they're all gonna go head to head, and then we will do an additional round where those ones that won the first round, they'll go ahead again. If you've seen a bracket battle, you know how they work. All right, let's go ahead and get started. First up, we have God Killer by Hannah Kaner, which I read in January. If I remember correctly, this book was so good that I texted basically everyone I know that reads fantasy books and said, you need to read this book right now. You need to read this book immediately. If you haven't read this book already, you need to be reading it. Why aren't you reading it? That's how much I enjoyed this book. Our main character, she's likable. She is devious. She's morally gray. She's fantastic. There is a little guy, a little god guy, a little guy that is a liar. He's the god of white lies. And you just want to protect him with your life. And I'm a big fan of little guys, so there's that. Again, by the time I ended to finish the book, I was like, everyone read this book right now. For February, we have What My Bones Know by Stephanie Fu. This book I read in one sitting. Ozzy got it for me, and I sat outside reading this book, sobbing my eyes out. Like, I was just sobbing. I was so emotionally affected by this book. I don't think I've ever been this emotionally affected by a nonfiction book in my life. This book is about complex PTSD and the diagnosis of that and the journey of healing from that. I am someone who has complex PTSD and has dealt with a lot of the guilt and shame and emotional repercussions of that mental illness. And so having a nonfiction book wherein I felt both heard, seen, understood, and related to, the storytelling was interwoven super well with factual information and cited sources so that it made me also feel like I was learning about myself. And I really appreciated that about this book. Now, which of these two books is gonna win? I don't know, I have to think about it. Sorry to fight with my cat. So I loved God Killer. It was a 5-star book. Don't get me wrong, it was fantastic. However, I think that What My Bones Know actually changed my life to read. And so I do think it's going to win this round because it was actually and genuinely life-changing. And I can't say that about a lot of books, so I think that it's going to win this round. It was such an impactful book. Next round, we have Love Boat Forever by Abigail Hing Wen, which I read in May. That is the third book, I think, in the Love Boat Taipei trilogy, it's the third book in the Love Boat Taipei trilogy, which follows these teenagers on this study abroad program during the summer, and their romances, their problems, their family expectations, etc. This third book was a really good wrap-up of the previous two books. It kind of ended the story in a way that was satisfying. It was also just a fun book. The romance was fun. The story was fun. I didn't come away with it frustrated about teenagering, which is really hard to do. And it was just a really enjoyable book. It is going up against The Marble Queen by Anna Kopp, which is a graphic novel that I read in April. Did I say May for Love Boat Forever? Because I meant March. but The Marble Queen I read in April for Sapphic Spring. Again, much like Godkiller, this is a book that I came away from telling everybody that I knew to read it, even if they didn't read graphic novels. This story follows a princess who is being betrothed to another royal individual and discovers that that royal person is a woman. But the princess also really struggles with some anxiety and dealing with the fact that there are expectations for her that she struggles with and feelings that she struggles with, and they feel overpowering to her. And the woman that she is partnered with is kind, gentle, understanding, and helpful. And the story as a whole was really emotional and well written, and I really, really appreciated that about it. With that being said, I do think that The Marble Queen does win over Love Boat Forever, because Love Boat Forever is just a silly little fun young adult book that I enjoyed, don't get me wrong, but it was like a beach read, if that makes sense. Whereas The Marble Queen, again, I would say was somewhat impactful. I want to own a copy of that book. You know, I don't really care if I own a copy of Love Boat Forever. I do want a copy of The Marble Queen. Next up, we have for May, the reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson, which is a thriller book following this girl whose mother has been disappeared for years and years and years. They're trying to film a documentary about it, but some of the information is not adding up, and more things are starting to come to light, which is making her very suspicious of pretty much everyone around her. That story had me on the edge of my seat. I'm pretty sure I read it in one day. It was super, super good. And that book is going up against June's book, which is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. This is the first book in a series, but the second book I don't think is out yet. It is an adult fantasy book wherein our main character used to be a hero or a pirate and used to do all of these adventures and all of these missions and all these things, retired, and now has to come out of retirement to do some other things. If you've watched my videos for a really long time, you know that this kind of trope is something I really, really enjoy. I loved the fantasy aspects. She was married to a demon for a little while, and like their dynamic has to be addressed and dealt with, and I enjoyed all of that. I thought that was really fun. However, it was a really long book and a little bit forgettable for me, whereas the reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson, I'll sometimes like randomly still think about. So I think that the reappearance of Rachel Price is going to be the winner in this instance, only because it's something that I still, again, think about. Next up for July's book, we have Tidal Creatures by Shauna Maguire, which is yet again another third book in a trilogy. This is a part of the Alchemical Journeys books. If you know me, Middle Game is my all-time favorite book by Shauna Maguire. I made it as the bonus, the like side quest for Clear Your Shit this last year because I want everyone to read it. And Tidal Creatures kind of just is the wrap-up finale for that. Is it my favorite book in the trilogy? Honestly, no, but the way that it wraps things up, I felt was really, really well done. Shauna does a really good job of understanding her characters, her plots, and the systems within her books where things don't necessarily, you can tell that the writer understands what they're writing. Sometimes a writer will write all of these really deep and interesting characters, but they struggle to keep up with that character's personality throughout the entire series, and I don't think Shauna has that problem. To the point that this book was just a really good job of wrapping all of these stories up into one, and showing really good examples of the middle grade books that are also involved in that series. I enjoyed it a lot. It will be going up against August's The Palace of Dreams by Jodi Lynn Anderson. Yet another third book in a trilogy. I finished a lot of series this year, y'all. I'm sorry. It is a young adult book series called 13 Witches, and I enjoyed it. But could I tell you what I enjoyed about it? Not really, if I'm being honest, no. And that sounds terrible, but I think that was a month where I was like, I guess this is a top book, but I don't really know. Like, it was fine, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the way that it represented different things, like grief and relationships with families, but it was fine. It was a good conclusion, but it was not very memorable. So much like some of these other books, I'm going to have to say that Tidal Creatures takes the win for this one. Next up, we have for September, which was for Sapphic September specifically, Damage Control by Jay, which is a adult queer romance novel. Yes, a romance novel is on this list. that follows a celebrity and her PR relationship with her PR manager, basically. They slowly come into their own and form a relationship. I liked, a thing I like about Jay's writing is that I can skip the sex scenes and I don't feel like I missed anything, and it's very easy to skip the sex scenes. But I also felt like these are very clearly adult characters. Their dynamics with their family members, etc., is very clearly adult. I feel like a lot of the time books are hard to distinguish between a young adult, new adult, adult. And I think Jay does a really good job of it being very clearly people in their mid to late 20s, to me anyway, where they have these dynamics of like living on their own but still relying on their parents to some extent and having interpersonal family relationship dramas that make sense that you're not a teenager anymore, you're definitely an adult. And the dynamics of the romantic relationships also reflect those things. I also really, really enjoyed just the relationship itself and the way that it was laid out in this book. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun reading it. It will be going up against October's nonfiction book of that month, 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. This book essentially says that it's okay if sometimes you get distracted by your phone when you're working, because maybe that is the thing that you want to prioritize. And that's also okay. It's okay that responding to a text from a friend is a higher priority than a less important work thing. That is okay. I really appreciated that. I appreciated that it essentially said, you know, it's okay that we don't have time for everything we want to do, but you make time for the things that you genuinely want to do. And sometimes it's okay to admit to yourself that you don't genuinely want to do the things you're not making time for. That's okay. And it's okay to accept that. Constantly trying to train yourself for efficiency and efficiency and efficiency is not good for you, and sometimes it's okay to slow down and just enjoy things. And I really enjoyed that. Which of these two do I think is the winner here? This one's tough. This one's actually really tough because 4,000 Weeks made me feel comforted, and Damage Control was just fun. It was just a fun romantic read. Now, I know before I said, oh, well, this was fun, but this one was, you know, emotional and life-changing. But I wouldn't say 4,000 Weeks was life-changing. I knew all of these things already. I have had these conversations, even when I talk about how I read so many books in a year. I've talked about you make time for the things you actually want to do. And if reading is not that thing, that's okay. So it wasn't necessarily life-changing. It was just comforting to see somebody talk about this with backed research. Damage Control made me remember that I actually don't hate all romance books. I like some romance books, especially adult ones that are very clearly adult ones with very clearly adult relationships. They are able to communicate, they have done therapy, etc. So I think that Damage Control is actually going to win this round, just because it, again, reminded me that I don't hate all romance, and it's okay for me to read romance every once in a while, and intentionally pick it out and read it. For our very last set of this round, we have November's Spelunking Through Hell by Shauna Maguire. That is going to be the 11th book in the Encrypted series, which has 13 books as of filming this in December. Again, this is the 11th book, so it's a little bit hard to give you a summary of this book. And I'm going to be very transparent. I'm pretty sure I picked this as the top book for that month because there wasn't really anything else I read that was that groundbreaking. November and December tend to be kind of tricky months because this is when I do clear your shit. And so I'm hyper-focusing on books that I've genuinely been putting off, or I'm continuing series. Spelunking Through Hell happened to fall into the continuing series category because I have been reading those all month, but it probably got the best book ranking because all the other books I read that month were just like so-so. And I hate to say that because I love Shauna Maguire. And I straight up know it's not going to be the book that it's going against. So, and that's going to be December's Annie-Bot by Sierra Greer. This one, I stayed up till 3 a.m. reading, literally last night. This book is about a AI robot who is built basically to please her master. But her relationship dynamic and the dynamic of the way that men treat her and interact with her as she learns and grows and continues to understand the world around her is really interesting. There is no way for me to talk about the plot here without spoiling it, so I'm just going to say that you should look up the trigger warnings before reading it, but it's a really good book. It's very interesting. Again, I stayed up till 3 a.m. and I am still thinking about it, so here we are. Obviously, Annie-Bot wins this round. So hopefully Editing Me will put the bracket on what it currently looks like over here. And we can go ahead and get ready for our next round, our second round, where we figure out what my top 3 are gonna be. Okay, time for round 2. Let's figure out what my top 3 books are gonna be for this year. In the first bracket, we have What My Bones Know versus The Marble Queen. So again, What My Bones Know is life-changing. So I hate to say this, but I think What My Bones Know is inherently gonna win. Again, that book devastated me in a great way, in a perfect way, in the best way. So What My Bones Know is gonna be the one that wins here. It's not really a debate. Sorry. Next bracket, we have The Reappearance of Rachel Price versus Tidal Creatures. This one sucks. I think that this one sucks most especially because I love Shauna Maguire and I loved Tidal Creatures and I love The Alchemical Journeys, and I'm pretty sure I put my middle game in this bracket battle more than 1 year in a row. However, Tidal Creatures was not my favorite book in this trilogy. I liked the 2 books that came before it, and so if I'm going to be honest with myself and with you, I do think The Reappearance of Rachel Price will be the winner here because, again, I still think about it sometimes. I've only thought about Tidal Creatures when referring to it to other people when talking about the trilogy. And I'm pretty sure I've said, it's not my favorite, but it's a good wrap-up. Favorite of the trilogy. So I think I don't have to give caveats when I'm talking about liking The Reappearance of Rachel Price. So I believe that's what puts it in this position of winning this round. In our last bracket, we have Damage Control, a romance book, and Annie Bot, the sci-fi AI book. That was also kind of horror. And I hate men. I would not have stayed up till 3 a.m. reading Damage Control. I would have very passively read it and not cared that much about it and moved on with my life. I mean, I enjoyed it and I enjoyed the romance in it, and I think that it wins out of this list for where it was. But when put up against Annie Bot, which I think is a fictional book that I'm going to be thinking about for ages, and is also one that I immediately told people, you have to read this book right now, I think Annie Bot is going to win. Yeah, actually, definitely going to be Annie Bot here. So, with that being said, we now know what my 3 main picks are, and I am going to be putting them in order of 3rd place, 2nd place, and 1st place. I think in 3rd place of these 3 books, I'm going to put The Reappearance of Rachel Price. Very good book. I enjoyed it a lot. It is a thriller. It did not change my life. I'm not, like, I do still think about it, like I've said multiple times, I still think about it, but I don't think it will be as impactful as the other 2 books on this list for my brain later on. In 2nd place is going to be Annie Bot. I have to give so many caveats to this book because there are some things that could have been done better. There are triggers and that kind of thing, that kind of content. I have to tell people when I tell them to read this, the rage that you're going to feel with the main character is worth it by the time you get to the end, but you have to get to the end. And that caveat makes it a little bit difficult because it means at some points during the story I was like, what the fuck is happening? What is going on here? Was it still a 5-star read by the time I was done? 100%. Amazing book. Incredible. I enjoyed it a lot. But it does not trump what is the #1 book here, which is going to be What My Bones Know by Stephanie Fu. That would have to be the best book that I've read this year. I still will pull it out and read quotes from it. It impacted me on such a deep level. There's a cat climbing my chair. It impacted me on such a deep level that I did not expect, and I just have not been that impacted by a book in a really long time. So What My Bones Know is definitely going to be the top book of 2024. So that's it. That is my top books of the month, or of the year. Sorry, I'm so used to my wrap-ups. Can I help you? So I think that we can, in this video here, I post videos every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time every single week except for the first full week of the month. So I will see you guys later on this week. And next week you can look forward to my worst books of 2024. It has been filmed, edited, and is ready to go. So look forward to that. I will see you guys later. Don't forget to take your meds, drink your water, and do something today to take care of yourselves, please. And enjoy the new year. Okay, thanks, bye.